Most Indian gamers have some sort of opinion on why our video games don't perform well.
Our video games. So this guy seems to be Indian. Even better.
Most Indian gamers have some sort of opinion on why our video games don't perform well. But here's the thing. I think that's the wrong question. Because in my opinion, they perform exactly as they should. Now look, I'm not a game dev, so I'm also not going to ramble about budget, skill shortages, or how we need more mocap studios, etc. All that criticism is fair, but my answer is much more simpler. Indian games fail because they are just boring and bland. Yeah, they're boring and bland. And you know what frustrates me the most whenever we are discussing these topics? Is that we are actually always comparing ourselves with China or USA or any other fucking country, I don't know. For example, if you look at any of the videos on this particular topic about why Indian video games fail, you will always hear these videos bring up Wukong. And they love to throw it around how China was out of nowhere able to produce Wukong, and I feel like we are doing a great injustice as a gamer.
Out of nowhere is kind of a wild thing to say. Just because you in the West don't know Chinese games doesn't mean they don't exist. China is non-stop creating absolute visually outstanding games non-stop all the time. It's just that we in the West typically don't see them. Wukong is just one of the first ones that we actually see like big in the West as well. But that is not uncommon for China whatsoever. But I actually saw a few days ago, or like a week or two ago, I saw a video floating around of an Indian Souls-like game actually coming out soon. The clip was like in the slums. I guess this was, yeah, a month ago. I think this was before that clip. Would be interesting to include it here too, but I guess it was before. Yeah. Yeah, no? What? That is cringe? I checked it out. I just saw a clip, so I don't know, it looked good enough to me. It's not Souls-like as such. Well, okay, then it's not a Souls-like, which immediately makes it more attractive to me. So, even better, I guess, for me personally. So, I would be down to play a game that actually takes place in India. We only ever get like US. Well, in Resident Evil 5 now we got China. You know, we usually get like the big Western countries and maybe a little bit of China. I would be down to check out a game that takes place in India.
Alone Indian gamers on the marvelous achievement that Wukong had achieved. If you look at the success Wukong got just from the Steam market charts alone, Wukong not only has the second most concurrent players on Steam, it also has the most concurrent players for any single player game on Steam. So yeah, this comparison is so stupid. It is like asking why we Indians are not able to win the Football World Cup, forgetting we haven't even...
We're in year 13 of a right-wing government. Okay. Does that mean that there can be no games set in India, or like what does... You don't get it anytime soon. I mean, it doesn't have to come from an Indian studio, right? Like Assassin's Creed. Okay, in recent years, feel like maybe not as much, you know, with the Japan controversy, whatever. But they used to create super accurate games to their time periods, to the countries they take place in, and these countries are also all over the world. Well, yeah, actually, yeah, all over the world. The first game in the Middle East, if I'm not mistaken. 2 Italy, 3 America, 4 Caribbean, 5 France, Rogue in like the also a bit of America, but also like the Antarctic. Then we had Syndicate in England and Victorian England. We had Origins in Egypt, Odyssey in Greece. Yeah.
Qualified even once since 1950s. Our video game industry has barely made a successful indie game, and to have the gall to compare ourselves with Wukong as if it's some mediocre game and forget that it is literally Witcher 3 of China makes the comparison disingenuous of us. It is very good to have ambitions, my friend, but it is an even greater achievement to be realistically ambitious. Now, before I even talk about my reasons for making this video, let us for a moment step aside and look at the most successful game from the Indian market, Raji. Setting aside all of the hardship...
I've never heard of it. I'm sorry, but art style kind of, just off the bat, just looking at this screenshot, it kind of reminds me of, was it Never Alone? Yes, Never Alone. Which does have an interesting setting because it's Alaska Native people in collaboration with the Inupiat, Alaska Native people, and it also is about them, takes place in their mythology, and the art style kind of reminds me of that. It is 3D, it kind of, yeah, you can see it kind of, it is 3D. It's a pretty interesting game. You know, I like this kind of setting that you don't normally see. I find these super interesting. So let me remove this because the trailer will autoplay. Yeah, I got all achievements in it. Like I liked it. And it's also pretty short, 6.4 hours for all achievements. Just off the bat, it kind of reminds me of that art style. This was made by a mutual friend. Oh, that's cool. Also looks like Kena Bridge of Spirits. I never heard of that. What's that? I feel like this is much higher quality of the 3D, but I see what you mean. I see what you mean. I love that they just have like concept art here. I see what you mean though. It's not the same, but I see what you mean. Never Alone is also not the same, but it has these like, it has like a comparable vibe.
Team, and I have nothing but respect for the founder and their story of having to sell their own home to fund the project. God bless them for believing so much in their product.
That is wild. Was it successful? Because holy shit. I hope that the creator was able to well, yeah, okay, good. Okay, good, because damn. That sounds like a wild story.
I will still say that when you compare the game to other similarly priced games in the same genre, it is mediocre. And it is mediocre not in the sense of art style. I feel like Indians are pretty good in the art department. Instead, what they underdeliver is always on how it plays. And that is what is most important.
I have this one game in my Steam library. That is, it's a roguelike. Can I find it? It's probably gonna be in... Asura is an action roguelike set in a fantasy world inspired by the richness of Indian mythology. I played it for 33 hours, okay? I sunk some time into it. And it was fun enough. But eventually I just dropped it because it just... Well, it was fun enough to play for a bit. But it was also always kind of samey. I wanted to finish it just for the sake of finishing it, but it was also always kind of samey. And eventually I just gave up on it. It kind of... I get the same vibe. So if like all these games that, well, this person is talking about are like this, then I get why they aren't as big as they maybe deserve to be.
They underdeliver is always on how it plays.
Yeah, well, with that one experience, I agree.
And that is what is most important for a game. Is it fun? But when we compare the gameplay to other games from the same genre, it feels boring and bland. But this doesn't mean that I don't appreciate Raji's existence. It is one of those few, in fact, is the only Indian game that is realistic with this ambition. It doesn't try to be more than what it can. The developers of Raji knew their limitations. They weren't pretending to make a AAA game from India. They were just trying to make a good game, and I really appreciate that.
And I feel like that's what you have to do. Don't be like the... Don't try to be the next big thing, especially if you don't have a proven track record of being a pretty big thing. Just try to make a good game. Is it that hard?
Yeah, now while I can't tell you the major issues that might be behind the curtain of Indian game development, I can tell you one thing that these game companies aside from Raji really seem to always fall onto as a very insulting trick: the Indian identity. And the pattern starts like this. Step 1, start with a cool Indian art style. Step 2, slap on some surface level mythology. Step 3, forget to design the actual game. We keep trying to sell
Yeah. Yeah. I had one of my old game design teachers kept hammering in how unimportant story is to a game, how you have to nail the gameplay, and the story can still be changed, and it will get changed throughout the course of creating the game, because that's just how game development works. So, and with any game, you can basically interchange the story with anything else. Like, you can change the setting of StarCraft into, well, Warcraft, effectively. You know, you can change the setting of the Binding of Isaac, of something biblical with your mother trying to kill you, into something completely different, into, I don't know, medieval, like a little knight tries to defeat the evil king, whatever, you know? You can change the story of any game, but you have to have the game. I disagree with that. I don't think it is 100% applicable with all games. There are some games that are very tied to their story, that are very story heavy. For example, Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. For example, Silent Hill 2. With those specific experiences, you're like, yes, you can take that gameplay and put it into something else, but it wouldn't be the same. With those experiences, you need the story for that to have that same experience. So I disagree with that notion of every game story is interchangeable, but if you build every game on the story, it's just not going to be successful. You also need gameplay, and some games don't need that deep of a story. With some games, you can have a pretty surface level story that you come up with later. Just make the game first.
Indian identity before selling a game, and I get it. It is probably the Indian investors who actually want to see the Indian identity.
He's right that this is a huge problem, not just an Indian problem, but he's addressing a specific comment from the community, so it makes sense why he's framing it from that view. Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. People who say story doesn't matter are really underestimating what makes games great in the first place. Can be great without the story, but that's usually because the gameplay is the driving force and not the story in the first place. It can also be both combined. Red Dead Redemption 2, for example. That is not impossible. It just depends on what you're aiming for with your game. Many games don't need a deep story. Resident Evil doesn't have a super deep story the first game, but it was massively successful. What is the story? Okay, there is a zombie outbreak, and there is this shadow organization, this evil organization behind it. Cool. You can write that story in 10 minutes. But the gameplay, the art direction is what shines. You need, well, but you need more than just art. You need more than just themes. You need gameplay as well. If you want to make a story-based game, like one that's very heavy on the story, okay, cool. But if not, and if you've been unsuccessful a million times already, as he seems to imply, then maybe try a different approach. Jen crashed out playing Resident Evil. I crashed the fuck out. I will crash out so much more throughout this game. I already know it. Hello, what is happening? Hey Mixu, we're watching a video. I'm taking a break from that shit stain of a game.
And I get it. It is probably the Indian investors who actually want to see the Indian identity. They think that is what will sell it. But it feels so insulting to me as a person that they think I am dumb enough to not see the kind of manipulation tactics they actually are trying to use. In fact, I will go ahead and say I don't give a flying fuck about whether the game has an Indian identity. I just want to have a fun game to play because I play games.
Wait, Dark Souls style combat, starting area is the slums. Oh, okay, that is this game that I mentioned. Okay. Didn't even realize. There is no such thing as game without gameplay, but there are countless games without story. Yes, and also countless successful games without story. There is also a game that has virtually no story, lives entirely off of visuals, has barely any gameplay, lives entirely off of visuals, and is regarded as an absolute 10 out of 10 masterpiece by so many people. Won awards, you can't even imagine how many. Journey. And it's a beautiful, beautiful game. I played it on stream. It's short, 2.3 hours on stream. My mouth was open. My jaw was dropped for half of that runtime. Not even joking. I don't know if that VOD is still floating around somewhere. My jaw was on the floor for half of the game because it was just stunning. But it has no story. It is possible. It's very possible. But for that, you have to have a vision. This is a vision.
have fun. Because if I wanted to feel Indian or actually wanted to see some sort of Indian sense of identity, I'd close my phone or PC and simply go outside and take a look around me. In fact, it really makes me laugh because most people on Indian Gaming's Reddit keep asking why our game devs aren't making games on our Indian epics like Mahabharata or Ramayana.
Actually, interestingly, yeah, you're right. The way he's saying it, if I wanted to see India, I could just go outside. I guess they're trying to market it to make it appeal to people outside of India, but they're not marketing it very well because I don't really know of any Indian games. So really their market is Indian people who already know how all of that looks. Yeah, you're right. True. Like, why not come up with something more out there? Something people don't already see every day. Like, for example, Russia is a depressing hellhole, okay? You go outside, you see gray commie blocks, gray sky, mud on the streets, broken streets, potholes all over the place if you're in Russia. Not in Moscow. Moscow isn't Russia, okay? But there are games, the games that are big, Atomic Heart, that's basically Wolfenstein in Soviet Russia. That is interesting. That is something different. Yeah.
In fact, it really makes me laugh because most people on Indian Gaming's Reddit keep asking why our game devs aren't making games on our Indian epics like Mahabharata or Ramayana and the Indian folklores. And to that I will say, good thing they aren't. It will be more of
Or like, for example, there are also plenty of Russian folklores, or like from the native people within Russia that there are still plenty of. And honestly, I would like to see that. It's a shame that I don't get to see that. But to the Russian people, they already know all that stuff. It makes sense why they wouldn't do that, because they already know all that stuff. So instead, they would rather make something more creative, again, like Atomic Heart. Ukrainian studio made the Metro series, which takes place in Moscow, but in a post-apocalyptic, post-nuclear war Moscow inside of the Metro. That is interesting, with people trying to survive, with the individual stations being sort of cities. That is interesting. That is something different. It's not just what you see outside anyway. It's not just your life already just in a game which you wouldn't want to play because you already see all that shit outside. It is something different. It's interesting.
Aren't making games on our Indian epics like Mahabharata or Ramayana and the Indian folklores. And to that I will say, good thing they aren't. It will be more of a parody than a quality achievement if it was made in the current Indian gaming environment. So yeah, why am I even making this video? All of it started simply because of one game. Around 3.5 months ago, I came across a trailer from IG in India about a game named Detective Dodson. I watched the trailer and for once I was actually excited because the game looked cool. The art style was actually pretty good as always, but it also felt like the makers actually had a passion as well, and that they were also actually focusing on the game design itself. But I was far.
I'm personally not a big fan of this art style. It looks unique though. I'm just personally not a big fan.
From correct. Time and time again, these companies make game based upon the Indian identity to stand out, but feels like by the time they are done with the art style and finally arrive at the game mechanics, the gas has already run out. In fact, Detective Dodson is such an atrocity when it comes to game design that I wonder why was the time wasted in trying to deliver a game based on scale rather than a game based upon whether it is fun to play. I do have to mention this.
Yeah, that should be
bad when it comes.
That should be the #1 rule for most games. Not all of them. Some games live off of the vibe. Journey is not fun to play. It is vibe. It is atmosphere. It is a piece of art in the truest sense. Or in the most essential way. I mean it in the way that most people, if you showed them Journey, they would agree that yes, this is art. With other games, many people would disagree. That's what I mean. But for the absolute vast majority of games, the lead question should be, when it comes to the gameplay, is it fun? If you're trying to include gameplay into your game, make it fun, please. Make it actually fun to play, because that way people will keep playing regardless. Like, story and everything, if it's about... anyway.
realizing what is a good usage of time along with resource management. And I include
Even if you have a very story-heavy game, such as The Last of Us, even that has gameplay that is fun. You want to play it because it's not just because the story is interesting, but also because it's actually fun to play, okay?
myself in it. But at least I do have to mention this. Indians are pretty bad when it comes to realizing what is a good usage of time along with resource management. And I include myself in it. But at least I'm not being paid, not yet at least, looking at all of you who have not subscribed and liked the video. I can give you an example of this. This game has long vistas where you can go back and forth. In fact, you can even go inside most of these buildings, but they are at most a set piece. And what is a set piece used for? Random ideas thrown at the wall so that we have quantity over quality. You go inside any building and at most you can do is interact with a character or pick up an item. So fun. But the main reason I feel very frustrated with this game is how it managed its resources. For some reason, this game had the brilliant idea that why not make our development cycle even more difficult for us and actually make it so that we also have to make a show based upon Detective Dodson. And funny enough, they did. They made a 1 hour long movie acting as a prequel to Detective Dodson.
So this is not just a cutscene movie, it's actually a prequel movie. Does the game even have any story? It didn't seem to mention that.
Now the sad
How can you make a movie for something that doesn't have a story?
part is you can clearly see which part of the product got more love.
समझे पापड़म जी
Right, this looks really good, what the hell? If the game looked like this, I wouldn't complain about the art style.
जाओ भी अरे डॉटसन डॉटसन पार्थ मेरे भाई क्या हाल है यार मैच का प्लान तो पक्का है ना इंडिया इंडिया
White Eyes never refused my requests.
And this is how the game actually looks, yeah. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the art style.
He was not even my real son.
So much emotional blackmail, Amma. Hello?
Let me speak to Amma,
Who is this?
a friend,
What?
one that keeps bumping into you.
You! Who are you? You're not my friend.
Who is your friend, Dodson? That Inspector Durai? Think again.
Hello? Hello?
Armin, how's your day
Visit
going?
me more, Dodson.
The movie has higher quality of voice acting, is fully animated, and also has a much better sense of storytelling than what the game itself has to offer. In fact, the storytelling inside the game is pretty much non-existent. All of the story inside the game consists within few lines of dialogues that are barely interesting, and any interest that comes to it is solely because you can use it as clues to the puzzles. But the worst part is, most of the time you don't have to pay any attention at all because lo and behold,
So the game doesn't really have any story. It has a pretty big world, but whenever you enter a building, it's basically just talk to one character or pick up one item. And all the story that is there is just clues to puzzles.
streets are dirty, so why not add some civic sense to the gamers by making you randomly clean the streets, and in doing so you are awarded hints, which if you acquired enough number of time can also help solve these puzzles without paying much effort. Now if the same thing any other company outside of India had actually done, where they had actually made you clean streets of India, everyone and their mother would be out with their pitch and forks, ready to burn the company down to its ashes. Once again, I will have to ask this question. Are you making a game that is fun to play, or are you telling me this game is very Indian and that it embraces all of its Indian fucking culture? Because once again, if I wanted to feel Indian, I'd just go outside and look around me.
Exactly.
My friend,
Exactly.
we all live in India, whether you're from fucking Bangalore, Mumbai, Pune, or any other fucking metro city. You can clearly see how delusional these game developers are. They keep pushing the Indian identity down our throats and keep reminding us about all of the shit that
Indian developers need to start owning the narrative around Indian culture. What do you mean start?
goes around in India as if we don't know about it. And I will tell you, these are also the same kind of people that always pretty much talk in English, but आधे से ज़्यादा time US या Korea की series देखते हैं and probably even shit about how Bollywood sucks. And then they have the gall to teach you, hey, embrace your motherfucking Indian identity. Once again, I would like to ask the question. Are you creating a game or are you creating a social lecture? What is the reason behind your gameplay mechanics? If it's not fun, please do not introduce them. Now, all of this frustration aside, why is the movie a hindrance to the game itself? They could have easily...
Yeah, why is it not complemental? Why did the movie seem to be so much higher quality? Why not make a good game first and then make a movie as a promo piece? Well, which they did, but why not... Anyway.
Made the exploration part of the game much more interesting if they had actually animated cutscenes for the game's storyline itself and not a prequel. They could have made an hour worth of cutscenes sprinkled across every nook and cranny for exploration. That would have actually made the tedious gameplay look more interesting. Look, I get it, budget are tight, teams are small, but then why waste resources on filler? Why make random fetch quests, boring minigames, a half-baked cricket mechanic just so you can say your world is immersive? Immersion isn't about size, it's about meaning. If your story is already struggling, why not use your animation talent to make cutscenes for the actual game instead of a prequel no one asked for? That would have made exploring more rewarding once again, and that would have actually added flavor to it. For the same asking price and the same...
Oh, Kathy Rain. I played Kathy Rain. I enjoyed it. It's just not my type of game necessarily. You know, I don't really play point-and-click games very much. I'm very rarely in the mood. There are a few I want to play through, but I'm very rarely actually in the mood for point-and-click games. But I enjoyed Kathy Rain. Apparently there is a sequel that's also really good if you like the original, so...
genre of games, there are much better alternatives like Cathy Rain and the Sexy Brutale, and I remember them just from memory, and I don't think Detective Dawson would be one of those games which I would be remembering years down the line. These games don't try to be anything else other than what they actually are, a game that is fun to play. Instead, Detective Dawson has delivered not one but two mediocre products, the movie and the game. It's like they failed on both departments when they could have actually excelled at one. Now I can ramble on more about what's wrong with the game and why it's not fun, especially the game mechanics, but instead I will talk about why I feel like such a situation ended up occurring. The real reason most Indian games flop is first that they don't actually understand the gameplay mechanics, but second is that they could actually have solved this issue by actually learning about the genre of game they're building. The real reason most Indian games flop, I think, is mostly because the devs haven't played enough games. And not just the usual AAA stuff, but the clever, weird genre-defining indies. Play Disco Elysium, play Papers, Please, play Her Story, Return of Obra Dinn,
Her Story I've been wanting to play, but I don't have it.
Hollow Knight, and then come back and build something that respects the craft. Because right now, most Indian games feel like college project.
That's a college project is a good word. Yeah, true. That I think sums it up based on what he said, based on what he showed. That actually I think sums it up pretty well. Play some games, play some good games, play the ones he mentioned, play, well, ones that I would mention, Portal, Silent Hill, you know, different genres, spread out your wings. If you want to create one specific genre, also play more into that, look more into it. Create a game that's actually fun, and then you can still make your Indian art style, don't worry about that. Gameplay can be interchangeable. Dark Souls could just as well to have a completely different setting. Yes, I know it's it contributes to the vibe, I know, but it could have a different setting and the same gameplay. Wukong as well. It doesn't have to be I forgot the name, the journey, the monkey boy journey with the staff. I know, I forgot the name of it. It doesn't have to be that. It is kind of interchangeable. The gameplay is the essence, and then the story they added because they thought it's cool to add this kind of story. You can still do that. I'd like to make a game. I have an idea, but I haven't made a game since college. I have an idea too. I've had one for a long time. I've had one ever since my first graphic design class, where my teacher, we actually made a small mobile game. That was a project that we had. So technically my credits are in one game, but I'm never in my life gonna mention what it is. It's trash, okay? Because nobody knew what they were doing. But as far as I know, it is actually on the Play Store. But during the brainstorming process of that game, I also submitted an idea, one that I liked very much, and one that I still think can be a good game. Maybe not a crazy successful one, maybe not the next, whatever, the next Call of Duty, for example, but one that I think can be genuinely good. But he didn't agree with that because, well, as I said, he was the kind of guy to say that story is unimportant. You need to put gameplay to the forefront, and I tried to prove him wrong by making a game by making a game idea of a game that is more story focused and has gameplay that actually contributes to the story and everything complements each other. He obviously hated it, symbolically printed out my PDF that I wrote. It was like a 6 or 9 page document, I think 6-page document. He printed it out and symbolically like threw it off the table. I never forgot that. I want to make this game. I want to realize it, but I need a team for that. I can't do it on my own. But if I am ever successful with streaming and all, with content creation, successful enough to generate enough money to be able to create a game, that will be it. And if it then becomes successful, I will shove it in his notes. I will spam his fucking email to just tell him, here, fuck you, piece of shit, here is the game, here is your proof that this can be good. He's got some really concise points in the script. Yeah, good video. Yeah, I agree.
Praised by professors, shared proudly by parents, but when they hit the real market, they fall flat. So yeah, my final thoughts, I feel like they just lack the talent and the experience for it. I'm saying they waste it on fluff. They're chasing identity over interactivity, quantity over gameplay, buzzwords over fun, and until that changes, Indian games will keep performing exactly as they should, poorly. If this rant hit home, hit like. If you're a dev and you're pissed, good, prove me wrong. Make something that punches
Nice.
above its weight and make me eat my words. I want to be wrong, but until then, I'm calling it like I see it.
Nice,
Just make it
nice.
fun.
Those are amazing closing words. Nice.
Game, please. So yeah, if you like the video, please like and subscribe. It really helps me a lot.
Nice. What do the comments say? On Brazil, we have the same kind of problem. We want to create GTA 5 before we can even make GTA 1. Good example of a game where nationality identity is a big part of it is Until Then from the Philippines. Okay, didn't expect to see different kinds of games from different countries. Now I'm curious. Until Then. Okay, it seems like some kind of life sim. Visual novel, emotional. Okay, some kind of like good story, I guess. Difficult to unpack this game due to almost anything you could bring up about it being major spoilers. Okay. Glad I'm alive to play this masterpiece. Don't play this game, it will ruin your life. Thought I wouldn't cry while playing the game. Has been a long time since the story moved me this much. Damn. Okay. Not because the game makes a big deal about being Filipino, but because the setting of the story is just authentically Filipino. The homes, the stores, the little things about hearing the newspaper, man in the morning, etc. But it's ultimately about the story and the character arcs. The setting is just designed to feel authentic without being overbearing. Yes, if you want to make a game that's set in a specific country, just make it be set in that specific country and still have a game. Too much nationalism, too little substance. The fundamental problem of inferiority complex with poor nations. Yeah. Poland, true. Poland has Witcher and Cyberpunk. Legit just realized I've never heard of a popular game from India till now. Yeah, actually kind of same. Isn't Control made by Finns? Yes. The entire studio. It's not just Control. It's Alan Wake. The first 2 Max Payne games are all that same studio. Quantum Break. That's all that same studio. Yes, it's a Finnish studio. Any other games from studios you wouldn't necessarily from countries you wouldn't necessarily expect? I have one. There was this one really popular and really good Souls, like before Souls like were such a massive thing. It was one of the first big ones, and it's apparently really good. And that was a German one. Anno games are German, you might know of them, but I think they're mainly a thing in Germany. But that one was really big international. Gothic is German, apparently. Crysis, right. Crytek is German. Crysis, Hunt Showdown is German. Deponia as well, yeah. Mystic Knight comes to mind from Korea, yeah. Any other ones? Well, I mentioned earlier the Metro games are from Ukraine. They moved their headquarters to Cyprus, so I guess Cyprus now, but originally Ukraine. Baldur's Gate 3, Belgian. Completely forgot. Interestingly, the GTA games, they're Rockstar North, right? Which is the England branch of Rockstar. So the one, of course, yeah, it's developed across the whole world. Different studios make different things, and then it comes together in this entire game. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. It is known as being developed by Rockstar North, which is the English branch, not the American one, which is interesting. I thought they were are they Scottish? Am I mixing it up? Yeah, it is Scottish. Yeah, true. You're right. So yeah, you can reasonably say and truthfully say that the GTA games are Scottish.